Today, we're looking at a green ink by Kaweco Palm Green. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. I get inks, test them, and share the results with you. Now, there's timestamps down below so that if you are in a hurry, you can skip around. But if you got the time, I'd appreciate you checking out the entire video. You can also follow me over on Instagram, and if you're new here, I would invite you to subscribe. In order to make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do the writing samples. I then inked up this Pilot Metropolitan with a 1.0 stub. I wrote with it for a day and then used it to take the notes for this video. In order to have some standardization, I always use Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper in the first writing samples, although there is an additional writing sample with different papers later in the video. Now, let's look at the writing sample. I picked this ink up in cartridge form, and to keep my writing samples consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X750 with a Goulet extra fine. Let's take a look at the Clairfontaine. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, no real shading. The extra fine is about the same tone as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen. We do get some spots of shading throughout the writing. 8 seconds to dry. Medium is much darker than the extra fine or the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 13 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby of the extra fine is showing a little color variation, which we get. The medium shows none, and we got none. Tomoe River. No bleeding, normal Tomoe River ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is just a tad lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 16 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone as the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade, 28 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both show no color variation, and we didn't get any. And Rhodia, with no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is just a tad lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen. There is shading. The is much darker than quick. And then look at the K. Look at how brown goes dark to light. 10 seconds to dry. Medium is a little bit darker than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade, and 17 seconds to dry. Scrubby of the extra fine far left to far right shows some color variation, and we do get it. The medium shows none, and we got none. I agree with Vita. I've learned a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. I put a line of ink down and immediately put it into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And we see this is a pretty complex ink, and I would actually expect a lot more shading than I'm getting. Now we have this gray across the bottom that is immediately forming a line and bonding with that paper and pushing its way up. But then we get this purple that comes in. And there's a water separation that occurs right before that nice bright green. Now the one on the right I let dry for 10 minutes before I dunk it into water. Most all of that gray is still there. Most of that purple is still in that line. But some of that purple has pushed up beyond the gray, just little bits. You can see it some on the far right and just a little in from there. We get water separation again between where that purple and the gray is before the green comes in. So that green is really going to move, which means I'm not expecting it to really work well for notes. Resistance tests are done to see how well this ink can be expected to perform on the page and how hard it may be to clean from your pen. I let the smear dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, it's the lowercase h that makes me say no. I would not use this in a note-taking situation if I want to be able to go back and highlight. Water is lifting those darkest tones, but all of that gray and that purple that was kind of staying in place in the second chromatography, really staying in place with the water. The water's not getting rid of it, and it didn't get it all out of my pen. Now, pen flush seems to be doing only a little bit more than what water did. Although it did a lot more than water did getting it out of my pen. It went in, came out. It was really almost instantaneous how quick the pen flush got that ink out of my converter and pen. 1/3 bleach solution completely removes it from the paper, but I don't anticipate you having a need for it to clean your pen. I test viscosity or flow with a tilt test that I'll link down below in a description or in a card. Now for the inks I've tested, I have found an average viscosity of 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Kaweco's Palm Green has a viscosity of 3.42, making this a very dry ink. For the inks I've tested, I have found an average dry time of 17 seconds, with a realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. I find this by using my writing samples that were done on Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. Kaweco's Palm Green has an average dry time of 15 seconds, which is normal. Instead of finding inks that look like Kaweco's Palm Green, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I went for a nice purple with this green, and I chose Robert Oster's Purple Rock. The second writing sample is done on Levenger, Franklin Christoph, and black and red paper. Here we're looking at Levenger notebooks. Now we get no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is only a tad lighter than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen. There are some shade spots. Look at how much darker the word the is than the word brown. Over is certainly lighter than the word quick. 9 seconds to dry. Medium is much darker than the extra fine, much darker than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 15 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby for both shows no color variation, and we didn't get it in the words, but we do get it word to word with the extra fine. Franklin Christoph paper. With no bleeding, medium, we are seeing some bleed spots that are occurring, but it's not touching the page underneath. It is creating a lot of show through. The extra fine and the stub are doing very well. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is about a tone lighter than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 8 seconds to dry. Medium is much darker than everything on the paper, with no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade, 15 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both shows no color variation, and there was none. And black and red notebooks, with no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is just a bit lighter than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, a couple spots of some shading that can occur here. 10 seconds to dry. Medium is darker than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. 16 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby of the extra fine shows some color variation, which we got. The medium shows none, which we didn't get any. And that is all that I have for writing samples. So what do I think of Kaweco's Palm Green? It is a nice green that has an ability to be very dark, and it provides some decent shading. I really do enjoy using the Kaweco cartridges in my brass sport. In general, going around, I find them to be real winners to use. So what nib and pen give the best writing experience with this ink? I found a dry stub really made it look amazing, but that's not the pen I normally carry it in. I don't carry a stub in my pocket pen. And I tend to use a wet fine, and the color, though very dark and eats up the shading, still looks very nice on the paper. If you've made it this far and you've enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. And if it's your first time here, I'm going to remind you to subscribe. Thanks for watching.